This is Father Patrick Briscoe.
And this is Father Bonaventure Chapman.
Welcome to Godsplaining. Thanks to all who support us. If you like the show, please consider making a monthly donation to us on Patreon. Be sure to like and subscribe to Godsplaining wherever you listen to your podcasts. Well, we're pleased to have with us today, friends, our guest, Chris McMahon. So Father Bonaventure and I are here with Chris McMahon, who is the president and chief executive officer at MFA Wealth, and he's involved in a ton of Catholic projects, and we're so excited to have him on the show and to hear from him tonight. So welcome to Godsplaining, Chris.
Well, Patrick, thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be with you. I admire what you men are doing so much, so thanks for having me.
Well, it's really a pleasure because it turns out you know a lot about something that we know very little about. You know, as Dominican friars, we're not supposed to be good at making money. Actually, we're supposed to have very little of that. We're supposed to have enough to provide for our needs, but otherwise be fairly simple. So I think that makes us a little bit different than most of our listeners who are looking to provide for their families and to invest well. And I know that's the heart of what you're doing here, especially with your projects with Aquinas Wealth. So Chris, I wondered if we could just say for our first question here and have you take it away a little bit. For Catholics that are concerned about making investments that honor their faith, that don't violate their consciences, that make investments with companies that are going to be faithful to the teachings of the church, what kinds of things can you point to help those investors begin to form their consciences and to invest wisely?
Father Patrick, it used to be so easy because we didn't have to worry about what companies were doing. The age old, I'm a 58-year-old man. For the first 20 years of my career, companies made money and they tried to, obey the law, and they would receive dividends. They'd give those dividends back to shareholders in the form of dividends. And then the shareholders would decide what to do with the money. And somewhere along the line, the last 10 to 12 years, social activism that really started on our campuses, and again, born in compassion, but misguided in so many ways, crept into the conference rooms of the boardrooms on Wall Street. And it's amazing. I was just a few weeks back, I was in New York. There was a debate, ESG investing versus Catholic value investing. And these fellas who were I was on the Catholic value side, you may have guessed that. And the ESG guys thought they were doing God's work. And I thought these poor guys are so misguided. It's so wrong in so many ways, as these companies have gotten more hubris around initially trying to accept and love everyone, which is beautiful. We do that as, my Lord, that's all we do, right? That's Christ told us to do that. We have to love everyone. We're created in his image, especially the most downtrodden. But anyway, what's happened is these corporations started to support more radical views, trying to support the most progressive elements of their customer bases. And what happened for many of us, we never just pushed back. We just kind of closed our eyes out in the suburbs and said, oh, it'll go away. It's not real. They're trying their best. And then we wake up, a few years later, and Target is saying to us, well, we're putting transgender bathing suits in our stores. And still, by the way, unrepentant to this day, the chairman was on Fox News or NBC the other day saying that was all overblown. Well, it wasn't overblown. It was a reality of they're trying to destroy everything that you gentlemen have built your life around, or I'm trying to build my life around, and our families. And again, I think it was born in compassion. So what's happened is we had two companies, Father. We had a normal wealth management company where we kind of avoided that like everyone else. We said, let's not get into that. Let's be neutral. Not realizing as we were trying to be neutral, all these companies were dragging us deeper and deeper into this very radical progressive movement. And we said, that isn't right. And our clients kept saying to us, with technology, can I now see what I'm supporting? The companies that I work with, can I see what I'm supporting? And initially that was hard to do. Matter of fact, most financial advisors, unfortunately, work for companies that are extraordinarily progressive in their own right. So not only can they not, even these are men of faith, these are daily communicants, right? They're good guys, but they can't do anything about it. We developed some technology using artificial intelligence. It's called a faith and finance score. It allows people to see everything behind the scenes, what their companies are supporting, social activism, and all these other things. And it's amazing. It gives them a detailed report about their performance, because that's important. And it gives them a detailed report about their faith alignment. It shows them everything they're supporting that conflicts with their deepest held beliefs, everything we built our lives around. And it's really exciting because we've had thousands of people take the faith and finance score. And many, many of them say, oh my goodness, I knew these were going to be the results. But now I have a chance. I'm going to move my accounts to Aquinas Wealth Advisors, because I know it'll be consistent with my faith. And actually, it's
Yeah.
even more troubling is we've seen so many dioceses, so many institutions, large Catholic institutions, completely no idea. Hundreds of millions of dollars sometimes. So we collect the institutions collect money from their donors. It's just beautiful. We're on the same page. We're, a beautiful thing. It is support what we believe is most important, and we're giving those dollars away to these radical organizations that are supporting just the darkest things. The good news is there's hope on the horizon. This is a new day, and we're going to change the world together.
Yeah, Chris, this is great. I don't have much experience with business say, but I did when I was at Providence College before I came back to CUA. I taught business ethics at the business school there. I taught in philosophy department, but we taught business ethics because most of the philosophers just didn't like business people. But I've always loved capitalism, always loved business, and I always bang the drum for, I'm going to out myself as a libertarian, for Milton Friedman and his amazing 1970 article. The social responsibility of businesses to increase profits within the bounds of law, as you mentioned. No one remembers that part. They just think that he just means
You're
increase
right.
profit. But the old fashioned, like, hey, if I want a razor, I just want a razor. If I want a shaving cream, I just want to buy shaving cream. That's all I want. And now again, this kind of the social issues involving that, and stakeholder versus shareholder kind of stuff. But so I'm really excited. I think this is great that you're doing this, and people are craving it because we're not. It's unlikely we're going to get out of a market economy. The only way out of a market economy, I think, is either poverty or communism, and I think those end up being the same thing. But so I'm excited about your project here. I noticed at Aquinas Wealth Investors it says this. I like this. It says Aquinas Wealth Investors, we believe that good returns and good values are not mutually exclusive. Now, I always try to teach the students that you don't have to feel bad about being capitalists, that you can do this well. But I think still, it was hard to get it across to them sometimes that they think, well, I either have to be good or I have to be wealthy. Like I have to make a choice between whether I'm going to, invest in good companies or if I'm going to make money and then I'll be able to support the family. They felt so. I like though that we believe that good returns and good values are not mutually exclusive. I think a lot of our listeners will say, "Yeah, what's the catch though?" So give us why that there's there's no catch here.
A couple things. It's funny. I'm getting to the age where my friends are saying to me, and I'm one of them, right? I'm one of the guys that's spending quite a bit of time in adoration and so forth, right? It's funny. I went this morning. My wife and I are involved in a maternity home here in Pittsburgh, and the sisters were able to expose the Blessed Sacrament, and I was there at 5:30, which is very unusual for me. And I said to myself, "How did I get here? Right? How did I? If you told the 20-year-old, 30-year-old me I'd be here, I wouldn't believe it." But many of my friends now would say, Father Bonaventure, they would say, I am willing to give up return. This is a non-starter for me. I have to align my faith with my investments. And to this point, you guys, the only choice people have had, there's a few mutual funds. There's a few nice groups out there that have a mutual fund or two. But you might own 10% of your portfolio in one mutual fund. You never have 100% of your money in one mutual fund. So it's great that they have these. I'm glad that exists. That was the first generation. Today, though, we give a person a completely portfolio, individual equity, stocks, everything, knowing that it's completely void of this. Some of our guys went out to a conference in Phoenix, the Catholic Medical Association. What a great organization, right? And they were out there and they had this big thing, this big display, that says Aquinas Wealth Advisors, and people coming up to it saying, wait a second, no one told, and it shows the output, sample output. My guys have told me you can't see this. I never knew this could. So we're not creating a need. People said, I've been looking for this. I want to know what I'm supporting, and this is available. But what's great is so many portfolios are not optimized anyway. Forget about faith alignment, just optimized for performance. So many times we look at them and say, hey, if we simply applied optimization techniques to the, meaning, the right mix of, various holdings,
stocks, bonds,
that brings
holdings,
up return. So what we're finding, you guys, it's amazing, is we're finding people are so excited. They're able to have very good returns and support their faith. And there's one, I'm sorry, I'm answering in a very long way. I apologize, but
you're doing fine.
Our goal for, my wife and I, our goal for Aquinas is certainly is, I always laugh because I had, 3 goals, but two of them, we wanted to really help the Sisters of Mary down in Chalco, Mexico. We just, every time we go there, we leave our heart there. It's an unbelievable place. And they have those schools all over the world. It's amazing. And really we always laugh. I say our main goal would be to be able to do, we're fortunate in our business today, but if our goal is to do really transformational philanthropy, that's what we'd like to do. That's one of the ways you do it, is by creating wealth. And that's the only way we can change the world, because they're on the other side. They're using great wealth against us. We can use this for good. I know I talked to your brother priest. He said you guys are building a new chapel, I believe, down there, which is beautiful, or a new church. You guys are in the middle of something.
In New York City. Yep.
Yep. And and I also know Father Gabriel. Wasn't he a Wall Street guy? Your brother priest, wasn't he?
Absolutely.
Yeah. We've got a few guys that know a thing or two. Yeah, that's right.
But returns are very important, because if there's no return there, it's not appropriate. And we need to be God. God gives us this. It's not ours, right? So we have it for a period of time. But it's so important we direct this to organizations that want to manifest God's kingdom on earth. And the only way we can do that is to get rich, save our money, accumulate it, and do it that way.
Yeah.
Chris, the faith and finance score, of course, it speaks to us as Catholics, speaks to a lot of our audience as Catholics, particularly because of all the ways that the typical ESG screening is going to undermine, as you were saying, the fundamental things that we believe in. I just wonder, in your work, have you run across other Christians who are concerned about the same thing, or maybe even people that aren't people of faith that would be concerned about just how present this kind of ideology has become?
It's such a great question, Father Patrick. There's two, and I think the Christians are even a little step ahead of us, because I think they're a little bit more engaged in the financial aspect, right? Okay. So we found many Christians. It was very funny. One of my friends came to me, and I hadn't seen him in 30 years. And he came to me and he said, "Oh my gosh, I found this. We're out there around the country, so it's not a local." And he said, "I found you, and I want to move my money here." And this particular gentleman was he was a Presbyterian guy. And he has this little, how we always argue. I always say we agree on 96% of the stuff. Let's stop arguing about the 3 or 4%. We think Our Lady is is incredible, right? And the Eucharist, what an unbelievable thing. I can't imagine a life without either of those two things, right? The love of the Blessed Mother. But he was so agitated, so frustrated, so disappointed by receiving emails from his wealth management firm with him, his, and pronouns on it. Well, that questions the sovereignty of God, doesn't it? Telling us that it's bananas, in my opinion. It's, again, born in compassion, and sponsoring various very, very radical left-leaning stuff. So yes, absolutely, Christians care. And we're seeing just general folks that are more conservative in nature say, "Why? I don't want to have companies deciding these things for me." And even folks that aren't religious want to make sure they're not supporting this kind of radical abortion ideology and radical transgenderism. There's one company we discovered. We had a group of priests that were working with us, and we don't know, because anyone can go on the AquinasWealth.com website and run their faith and finance score, and they can do it themselves and get the results. So we want to change the world. We really do.
Yeah.
And this person called and he said, "Hey, can I speak to you? We looked at our money and we were upset where it was." I said, "Sure." And one of the guys brought it to me, and they had about $17 million of assets, which is a big group for a group of non-diocesan priests. And long and short of it, as we looked at it, they realized about 37% of their money was companies were supporting abortion directly. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Wow. And they were told over and over again by their guys, "Oh, we look at it, it's fine." The reality is people believe they're looking at it. Another one I found very interesting, a large organization, and again, we attended this for individuals, but organizations as well. But we're shocked how many good leaders are in Catholic organizations that say, "Wait a second, this is a non-starter. We cannot support this." But this particular organization came to us and said, "Look, we bought a fund from an investment company, and it's a good investment company. They have a great track record, and but it was really when you talk about this ESG movement, there's 3 companies we really have to be worried about, in my opinion: BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, because they were sending. Think about this, gentlemen, for a moment. They were sending to leaders of corporations who are being profitable. Larry Fink, the man that runs BlackRock, said with a straight face, "If you do not adopt our policies around gender identity, regardless of the profits you make in your company, Mr. Chairman, because we own so many shares in your company, because we have a huge mutual fund, your job will be in jeopardy." Yeah. So, of course, these companies are going to go out and run up the ESG flag, because we didn't push back before as the conservatives. We just kind of turned a blind eye and said it'll go away soon. But that's what happened with the hubris
Well,
of Disney and Bud Light and Target. Excuse me.
yeah, no, that's Chris. This is great. I want to get into the nuts and bolts a little bit too, but I want to ask one. I have this one suspicion is that with this faith and finance credit score, that if someone hasn't checked theirs, it's very likely, I bet, that they do donate money, and maybe a good amount of money, to organizations that they wouldn't want to donate if they do. I suspect it's not like, oh, if 50% of the people, you might. I mean, so that the first question is it just the case that basically if you have not checked, it's very likely that your portfolio has this sort of donation thing.
It's very likely, yes.
Yeah, and then
Shockingly likely.
yeah, and the second thing is people might say, "Oh, well, the Bud Light thing. I mean, it was bad in Target, but there was blowback. And Modelo's the favorite, beer in America right now. So like that was they're listening to us, and my suspicion is no, they're not they're not really listening. They'll just so. But you work in this field here. I mean, so the Bud Light was a bit of a blowback, but is that really going to change fundamentally how companies are involved in these kind of practices? I mean, is this or is it just like no? Now it's going to be they're going to just be underground, and we still have to pay. We have to pay more attention now than ever to where we're investing.
We do have to pay because they'll use subsidiaries, Father Bonaventure, which is crazy. So now that the technology goes 6 layers deep, we use 6 different screeners on our tools and our own as well. So we really get in there deep, and we'll always miss some because it's an ever-evolving science, right?
Sure.
Bishop Caggiano, who's on our board advisory board, he said, I'm sorry, it was very interesting. He said, some element of complicity is unavoidable. Let's try to keep it as small as possible. And I agree with that. But I think a couple things are huge. People are Americans. We believe that we have, are important. What we think is important. We have the right to believe what we do. And when someone's working in direct contrast to that and does it with an element of arrogance, amount of dismissiveness, and how dare you think that this isn't appropriate, and our Christian values, right? What we believe in the deepest parts of our soul, these people think is ridiculous and absurd and archaic. And then, so I think it's more important than ever that we do this. And also what we're doing is with folks, we're trying to support Catholic missions with this work. Our goal is to as I said, to really do some transformational philanthropy, because we have to support these organizations, and we have to let people understand that we do have control and we do have power, because we can't just let it go. We can't let it go. Mm-hmm. I've seen, it's interesting, the guys who let it go the most are financial advisors. They're good guys. Mm-hmm. Many of them are, as I said, daily communicants. They're good. Mm-hmm. They're good. I'm a big Legatus guy. I was the vice chair of Legatus for 6 years. I love that. I haven't done the Malta thing yet. I can't get used to the robes, honestly, gentlemen. I don't know how to, but
we'll help you, Chris. We'll help you.
Okay. Maybe they have different ones than us, but
stuff, right? It's all good stuff. But at the end of the day, we have to, they're coming for us, and we need, and there's more of us than them. There's more people that care. There's more people that and we need to help those financial advisors have the courage of their convictions. I was just at a meeting, and a young man stood up and he said, I left my job. He's a finance guy. He said, I left my job. It was funny. And he said, because of my dad and because of Chris, which I was like, oh no, he left his job because he was working in a company and said they would pay for you to travel to have your abortion done. Mm-hmm. They'll pay for you to have your abortion done. And I thought, will they pay to send someone to go to another state to adopt? Will they pay to have someone have childcare? Excuse me. And I thought to myself, this guy's walking his talk. He's doing it. He said, I have to do this. I have to leave this company because this company and others like it previously felt like this was okay. And some of these ESG companies are amazing. One of them actually had the nerve to say to me in this debate, well, if this fund isn't exclusive enough, if it doesn't eliminate enough, contradictory things like abortion and so forth, we'll just create another fund. And I said, I don't think you understand, guys. What happens is if you're involved, it's in for a penny, in for a pound. We're not simply just saying, oh, well, this one fits better, so this, because the same thing happens. They retain 2% of that fund in profits. They take that 2% profits, they put it in the pile. It's much like the government saying that we don't use our dollars for Planned Parenthood to fund abortions. And it's the same siloed silliness. Father Bonaventure, I'm not trying to answer your question there, so I apologize if I didn't.
No, you're doing great.
Okay.
Chris, I think one of the things, and you touched on it a little bit, is that people start, especially when they're in business, you have a conversion, you have a movement of faith, you sort of start to wake up to some of the things around you. You mentioned Legatus, but what other resources have you found that help made the work that you're doing now possible, because it's difficult to just wake up one day and make, the step that you were describing, some of these other Catholics have made, where they leave their jobs, or to found a company, like you've done, the work you've done, that doesn't just happen in overnight. So what's helped you along the way, and what would you advise others to do if they're listening to the podcast, and if they're going through this kind of movement of heart and conversion of mind?
I was saying, I just told the story a few days ago, Father Patrick. I used to be afraid to live my faith out loud, because it was developing. I didn't know where I was, and I thought it was, it would hurt me in my life, my business, and so forth. First of all, my wife is an incredible leader, and she's an incredible, just deeply faithful woman. And like everybody else, I do as I'm told, right? So number one, that's a number one thing. So have a wife to straighten you out, number one. Number two, I started doing things because I realized people just want to be invited. So in my business, I would do things. I would have events and have, when you own a business, you have a little bit more largesse, I guess, and you can bring people. So I started doing that around the church. About 5 years ago, I said, why don't we start meeting Friday mornings? Again, I'm not a morning person. At 7 a.m. We'll go to 7 a.m. Mass, and we'll go downstairs. And this is in Pittsburgh. We'll go downstairs and we'll have a coffee. And we'll ask the pastor, who's a great guy, to come down and maybe give us a few words and give us some insights. Not run it. It's a very casual thing. There's a lot of insulting to start with. We call it bromentum, or I call it bromentum. I thought that was a funny thing. Catholic bromentum. Well, here, just the other day, there's 35 guys down there after Mass, right? And wanting to talk. Some guys talk about he's going through a horrible divorce. But it's very, there's a great guy in Philadelphia, Eustace Mita. Eustace owns the hotel where we have Catholics of the Shore, our big event in Stone Harbor every summer. And we'd love people to come to that for sure. But he has a group, and he did a thing called Man Up Philly and Man Up Boston. But he also has a Friday morning group, which is a little different. They go to his office. He's got a big office, and there's people that Skype in, and they probably have 50 people praying. Ours is a little bit more free form. People come with stuff. People come with questions. And then people come angry, right? They're mad at the church. We live in Pennsylvania. That report was brutal, right? And it was painful and hard for all of us. But our friends didn't realize how hard it was on the priests who given their life to this thing. They were the most betrayed, right? They were the most betrayed of the good priests that were thrown into this mix. So that has been very helpful, having a fellowship of men that will do this with you. Secondly, having a charity that you can support. There's so many great ones here. There's a soup kitchen that's been around since the Great Depression called the Red Door, and along with it a great coffee shop, Brother Andre's Cafe. Named after Brother Andre, where all the disabled folks work. It's beautiful. So I just started building my life around that. That's where we would send clients, those cookies and coffee. We would meet when I meet downtown. We'll meet at Brother Andre's Cafe. I've asked my friends all the time now, and they say, when do you want to meet? I will say, why don't we meet at the Red Door? We'll meet at 9 a.m. We'll make sandwiches. We'll hand them out in coffee. We'll be done by 10:15. It's not that long a thing. And then we can sit around and talk about your whatever, your financial stuff, or we can come back to my office. And those things have helped me personally. One of my brothers went to a retreat out in Mundelein in Chicago the other day, and he lives out there, and he said, I cannot believe that I'm in a retreat in Mundelein. He's a grinder guy. He said, how did you get me to do this? I said, look, you volunteered, but he's just been, you draw people into this stuff, right? You guys know it. So
it's witnessing by a personal thing.
Yeah, slowly, I think.
Okay, so Chris, we are running out of time, but I'm going to give you two questions, and then Father Patrick will see what. So I'm stealing the kind of thunder of our normal back and forth. But I want to ask you one: how do you encourage people in the workplace to be Catholic who are afraid of, they're just, I don't want to rock the boat, or I'm worried someone. So some practical encouragement to people, say, hey, actually your faith is important. You don't feel good about not talking about it. You don't have to be an evangelist, but how do people in business, how do people in their work life, any advice to be Catholic without feeling like they're kind of hiding from something? And the second thing is, what advice to priests that do you have about what can we say to people in the business world that we're not, how can we be better in that? So I think these two, one for the people and the faithful, but then especially for me, as a priest, what do you wish the church said more about for business kind of stuff? You can take them in any order you want. I want both those answers though.
I'll go for
this.
this.
Super important.
It's easy at work. It's three things, right? put a crucifix on your desk or in your office. Number one, that's easy. People see it, and people never tell you a dirty joke again. It's unbelievable. Okay.
That's
Number
great.
two, when people start, especially men, think it's reasonable and normal to go to like despicable places. They call them gentlemen's clubs. I don't know a gentleman
Yeah.
who's ever gone to one. Right. So
Yep.
say no. I don't. No, thank you. Because guess what? They stop asking you. Then they say, "Boy, I like that better." Number three, and this is the hardest one for me, is I used to say, I'll pray. I never said anything for a long time, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll be thinking of you. That's what I used to say. That was courageous, wasn't it? Then I would say, I will pray for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I stopped that too. Now I say, let's pray for him now or her now, no matter where I am.
Wow.
And that's hard.
And it's okay. It works though, right? Like you're not fired, or it's okay. It more or less, it works.
Absolutely, because it's not.
Okay.
It's not. I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean I have to put it down. I had a funny one. I was in Stone Harbor the other day, and a man walked up to me. He said, "You're from Pittsburgh," and I thought, we talk funny here. I thought that's what he said. He heard. He goes, nope. I heard you outside of church. You were talking to some other Catholic crazies from Philly and New York that we knew. I said, yeah. He said, here's really what happened. I was walking on the beach about 3 months ago, and I was on the beach, and I was thinking about my granddaughters that both passed away. One was miscarried. One lived 7 days, was miscarried. And I was distraught, and I was on the beach, and I looked up, and there was a nun standing there. He said, I couldn't believe the coincidence. And I said, please say that again. He said, okay, it wasn't a coincidence. I said, there you go. And he said, she changed my life, and she did so many things, Bob. And I said, oh, that's wonderful. And I actually had the wrong sister in life. I thought it was Sister Mary Elizabeth. It was actually Sister Mary Gabriel. He showed me a picture. So I called her and said, look, it's unbelievable. You changed this guy's life. She said, wait a minute. Where did you see him originally? I said, I saw him at church. She said, I hadn't been there in 30 years. That's what he told me on the beach that day. So as we prayed on the street in Stone Harbor, which is hard, right? We prayed for his granddaughters.
Mm-hmm.
That was hard. For me, that's hard, but I do it. I just did it downtown the other day. 5 guys joined in. And I thought that was interesting. The guys I wouldn't have expected to.
Yeah.
So that's
start, like you said, I like your start small, kind of build up to build confidence and just, get in there and okay. But all right, what about priests though? What about the church? What is the church? What can the church and what can the priest say?
Priests really have the
business
effort
people?
to be less odd. That's a really important thing. I think some guys
Not going to happen.
I think some guys are great, incredibly engaging and fantastic. I love it. And then other guys are trying to go, they're trying to be bizarro. And I'm like, why are you doing that? One of my guys
They're succeeding. Yeah.
Yeah, he grew this beard. He was wearing a cassock. He looked like Bela Lugosi. I'm like, is your goal to scare every child? And I'm like, you're a diocesan priest. Give the guy a high five. Smile, right? And I think the other thing is, authentic relationships with other men is the most important thing. I was with my brother the other day, and I laughed. I said, I got to call a guy, and he looked at my phone, and it said, FR, okay, FR, and he starts scrolling through my phone. He goes, how many priests do you know? There's like 52 priests in my phone. And my brother's like, I don't have one priest in my phone. So I think we as lay people and you as priests, we have to form relationships because when people see priests out at a restaurant or they see them with a group of guys golfing or hiking or anything or giving away sandwiches, they're drawn to that. And people are naturally apprehensive about talking to priests. And when they know you're normal and kind and smiling, it's a different game. I mean, it's attractive. It's overwhelming. People are this close. You know this better than I do. They're this close and they're damaged. The other day I was in a thing and a girl was being tough. It was in New York in a media place, tough. And and a guy was swearing and she was swearing back, tough. Then she came over to me and she said, I was on next. Is your microphone on correctly? And I said, I hope so. And she said, what is that word? I said, it's Aquinas. She said, what is that? I said, well, he was a great thought leader in the church. She said, I want to get back to the church. I don't know how to get back to the church. My mother died. She started crying. Let's pray for your mother. I want to get back to the church. I don't know how. I said, it's simple. Let's go to confession. You're back in. It's the easiest back in the history of the world, right? And and she did. She met with one of the sisters of life. She went to church. She went to confession. She's back in. But she went. They just need that little time. What is that word? Wow. They see you, gentlemen. Your life and everything you do is incredibly important. And I'm honored to know you. Thank you.
Well, that's good.
Well, Chris, I mean, it's we're who are honored as we've been recording this episode. Thanks so much for jumping in here and for really taking on some big topics. I mean, again, for people who haven't done much research about ESG or don't know how their money's being invested, we really would encourage them to go over to Aquinas Wealth, aquinaswealth.com. They can check out your work and connect with you. They can research the work you've done with faith and finance. A score and really see how their money's being spent. So thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for everyone who supports our podcast here, Godsplaining. If you'd like to tithe to our work, check us out on patreon.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review about the show wherever you listen to your podcast. Visit godsplaining.org to shop our merch and to get dates and information for upcoming Godsplaining events. As always, thanks to all of you for tuning in. Know of our prayers for you. God bless.